rhythm is motion, right? So often we can label something or speak to an experience when, well, that's just one snapshot in time, right? And so if you stay with it and you notice what changes, new information starts to come in, because that's what rhythm is. It's motion. It's constant change, right? So anything that actually feels stuck or stagnant, to me, is an opportunity of something that needs to be turned towards, and send it your breath and patience and compassion to see if you can get some motion and flexibility back into that area, whether it's physically in your body or a relationship in your life, a belief, right? A habit. If it's stagnant, it's lacking the flexibility that is innately a part of what rhythm is.
Yeah.
Right? So I like to think of these as the key principles of rhythm, because while we're learning and getting information on the different rhythms, this is what we want to keep coming back to, right? Is, okay, well, rhythm is motion and oscillation.
What's the difference?
Pardon?
What's the difference between motion and oscillation?
Oscillation just means like up, down, right?
Okay.
Or side to side, like pendulum. So it's motion is what's happening, what allows oscillation, right? So it's kind of like the same thing.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. It's multi-dimensional and it's multiplicity, which means there's never just one rhythm, right? We are complex. We are relational beings, right? So we want to look at all of the different rhythms and how they influence each other so that we can find harmony within the rhythms. It requires structure and flexibility, right? There's a pattern in rhythm. There's structure. Yet, if there's not flexibility, then it becomes stuck, right? Stagnant. We want flexibility. That's what allows rhythm to be in harmony with all of the other rhythms. It's about listening and responding, right? Really listening, pausing to notice what else is there, right? I always relate it back to that visual exercise of looking around the space, and then it's noticing detail and not just going like, oh, there's some detail, moving on. No, it's what else do I notice? What else is there, right? That's what listening is. Staying in that place of really noticing what else is going on, listening to the complexity. It's also this guiding and being guided, right? We impact and influence our rhythms. We have choice. And there's a lot of this notion of just surrender and be guided, right? So I'll relate that back to the breath often of, if you just always guide your breath, you're going to create some problems.
Yeah.
Can't just manipulate our breath all the time. We have to equally understand how to be guided and listen to our breath. Even if we're breathing in a way that consciously you could say, oh, this isn't a healthy rhythm. Well, what if I actually just paused and listened to my body and let my breath guide me for a little bit, knowing that I know my way back home. I can bring myself back into regulation rather than just noticing it and trying to fix it right away.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Expanding and retracting, another important part of rhythm, right? Things get bigger, the container gets wider. Oh, and now we need to come back a little bit and make sure the structure is solid. We've got some foundation. Next time we expand, we can go even bigger, right? So it's another type of oscillation, expand, retract. And then collaboration and harmony. Again, we're relational beings, right? You and I have a rhythm right now, right? The space between us.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many different types of rhythms to keep in mind.
I love your graphics.
Oh, good. Thanks. Yeah, this is fun for me. Okay, so this is the ultradian rhythm. Now, ultradian rhythm is a 90-minute rhythm that is happening all day and all night. Right? So your circadian rhythm, or the rhythms while you're asleep, are ultradian rhythms. Right? So to get a high quality sleep, most science is showing us that we need like 4 to 5 full ultradian rhythms. right? That's a really good sleep. Now, during the day, it's really good to understand ultradian rhythms as well, because even what you just mentioned, you have more space in your day. If you created some structure of really looking at breaking up your day in these 90-minute increments, you'll find that you could get a lot more out of your day, and you're going to feel like you have more sustainable energy, right? So right at the beginning of an ultradian rhythm, so down here in the bottom left corner, this is where we would, again, bring in that image of limbic friction. So as I'm about to step into a 90-minute ultradian rhythm, I would check in. Where am I on the spectrum from activation to collapse, dissociation, right? Use different breath techniques and gaze to bring myself into a place where, okay, I can focus now. And then I have this alertness that starts to build. Over a 90-minute period, I hit this peak top performance, right? Where the adrenaline and the epinephrine in my system has now reached its max point. There is a quit response that happens in my body naturally, and I start to come back down, right? So at the end of a 90-minute ultradian rhythm, it's really, really great to bring in a 10 to 20-minute refractory or restoration, whether that's simply standing up from your laptop, going outside for a little bit, doing a little bit of movement. If you're doing really intense work and you need to do maybe a few ultradian rhythms back to back, it could be really good to do a 10-minute meditation at the end of one 90-minute rhythm, because this resets your system. So when you step back into your next 90-minute rhythm, you're doing it refreshed. All of your hormones, your chemicals, they're ready to go again, versus you potentially saying like, oh, I'm a little tired, I'm just going to have a little bit of coffee and then I'm going to plow through. Right? At the end of the day, you're going to pay for it. But if we actually keep this rhythm in mind throughout the day, at the end of the day, you're going to feel nourished and energized and full, because you are listening to your system and working with these natural rhythms versus trying to override them.
We certainly don't live that way.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm an elementary school teacher.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a lot of recovery happening.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, this is one of the gifts that I've seen with, for myself with COVID happening is, yeah, I used to run around all day long to different studios, coaching sessions, creating this, like it was just hustle all day long. And now that once I understood this and I had space in my day, it makes such a big difference to actually honor, okay, I've been, it's about 90 minutes since I, picked up this book or started working on this project. I know that if I actually step away right now and do something to just down regulate, I'm going to have a lot more creativity to work with today. I'm going to have way more energy. It makes such a difference. Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the ultradian rhythm. Just going to check time here. Yeah, so this is just kind of speaking to, again, a little bit more of the information about that 90-minute rhythm. Another way to think about it is that, well, we need effort and we need surrender, right? That's another oscillation, another rhythm. If I am all effort, I am going to burn out. If I am all surrender, I'm kind of like a leaf in the wind that's just kind of going wherever the wind directs me, and I don't really have much say or purpose in my life, right? I need to honor both.
Yeah.
So what this is saying is, it's actually kind of just what I just said, is that there's a natural quit response when the effort, which is epinephrine and adrenaline in your system, it reaches that point where your body naturally says that's enough. You can override it if you need to. And one of the ways that you can do it that's actually quite healthy versus taking a stimulant is to access dopamine. So in that moment when you're feeling the quit response or some struggle set in, if you actually can focus on what's good and actually even celebrate the struggle, say like, oh, this is actually good for my system. I'm making progress here. I'm going to take a moment to celebrate a small win. What am I learning, right? So it's the epitome of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. When you can focus on these items under the growth mindset, that actually gives you a boost in your energy and will allow you to do more work if needed. And even if you still do some restoration, if you include growth mindset throughout the process, you're going to learn more efficiently and you're going to recover more efficiently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when we are working on something, especially in the beginning stages of it, it can be frustrating, right? Like, I want to understand this. I want to be a master in this. Oh, I'm totally not a master. I'm a novice. This is really uncomfortable. Oh, I'm getting a lot of errors as I'm practicing this, right? So in those moments of agitation and frustration, if you can come back to those points in growth mindset,
right,
that's actually what allows us to grow more efficiently and will bring pleasure even into resistance or agitation, because you know,
bring it in a positive way.
Exactly. And like,
right.
Oh, this is an important part of the process. I'm not doing anything wrong. If I stay with this, I'm actually going to grow way more efficiently. Yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes in this ultradian rhythm, if once what you're working on is familiar, then it can also include a lot of really pleasurable focus and a sense of flow. But that doesn't happen until you're familiar with what you're learning or working on, right? So if it's just agitation, that's okay. It won't be like that forever. And then near the end of a bout of work, we need to honor the surrender. So whether it's a nap, getting out in nature, doing something really restorative, or as Andrew Huberman calls it, non-sleep deep rest practices like yoga nidra. Right? Something where your body gets to just fall asleep, but your mind is still active and receiving restorative chemicals. That's actually when the neuroplasticity takes place. It's in the restoration after. So if you skip the restoration, all of the work that you're putting in, all of the effort, it's actually not going to stick. Right? You need to rest after. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Is that why we do Shavasana at the end of yoga?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's when it's like that's when the integration actually happens. It's when we rest and we stop doing. We just let ourselves be for a bit. Yeah. Yeah. From morning till night, there are these 90-minute rhythms that are happening. It's not on this graph, but we can also start an ultradian rhythm, right? So if I sit down and it's, I don't know, 9 a.m. and I'm actually, my ultradian rhythms are kind of just happening in the background, yet I can access an ultradian rhythm. So I can choose to start in that moment to check in with my limbic friction, move myself into a state of ideal optimized learning, and I can create an ultradian rhythm, right? So I might do maybe three bouts of that in my day as a very purposeful state of creating change in my brain and honoring, conserving and creating energy. And then also in the background, the ultradian rhythms are happening, right? So it does get a little bit confusing in that you don't just need to tap into when it's already happening. Like you can, and that's important. And you can choose when to start one. And the more you pay attention to how your energy naturally changes throughout the day, you'll start to find that you'll feel like, oh, I can feel my body just needs some rest right now. And rather than getting into like, oh, but I haven't done that much today, or whatever it is we say to ourselves, it's no, that I'm at the end of an ultradian rhythm. So I'm going to honor the rest. And I know that really after 10 or 20 minutes of really just honoring rest, I'm going to come back. Right? But if I fight it or resist it or make it mean something that it's not, I could actually shift into a survival state that then gets me stuck in this place of disconnection versus just trusting and honoring rhythm. So the only thing I'll add about circadian rhythm, because this, it's interesting to understand like how our hormones naturally change throughout the day. So again, you can understand the rhythms of, cortisol and alertness, melatonin, how it starts to peak in the late evening. It peaks just after midnight, and then it comes back down. So around the time when you're waking up, your melatonin is down at its lowest amount, and your cortisol is actually at its highest. And that's why we wake up, right? So to really help this rhythm, the one rule that I follow for circadian rhythm is, as often as possible, I step outside to perceive the natural light of a sunrise and the sunset. Because this is how we advance our circadian clock and delay our clock each day. It's through light exposure. And one of the really cool things about this light exposure is that, especially in the evening, if you gaze around sunset, outside, not through a window, just looking out at the horizon, receiving that very specific type of light that happens at sunset, that actually helps diminish the possible negative effects of light exposure later into the evening, from having lights on in the house or screens on that can really get in the way of your melatonin, right? That rhythm that we want for a healthy circadian rhythm. Simply by gazing at the natural sunset, that will help to make sure that your circadian clock stays in a really good rhythm and is not impacted by screens and lights at night. So we're going to start moving into a nervous system experience to finish off our evening together. And the first thing that I like to go into, again, is what you actually spoke to at the beginning of our time together, is that the healthy rhythm of a relationship is, it starts in connection and reciprocity. It moves into rupture, disconnection, and then it comes back into a repair or reconnect. And that a healthy relationship, so this was a study showing a healthy relationship in a secure, attached relationship of child and caregiver. It required regulation from rupture 70% of the day. So when repair is consistent, rupture provides a breeding ground for growth and evolution. So rupture is not bad. It's actually great, right? As long as there's a consistent repair. So this really has reinformed my relationships, where I don't avoid ruptures anymore, right? I really acknowledge them and honor them and know they're normal and healthy, as long as I can recognize them and repair them. This is speaking to ruptures of the past versus ruptures in the present moment. So when there's a rupture in the present moment, the steps are: slow down, acknowledge the rupture, right? And acknowledging it is decoupling from it, unblending from it, creating space, right? Not getting into a story of I'm bad, or, this is going to be like this forever, right? That's a story of the state you're in. It's not the whole truth. So we want to acknowledge the rupture, like we're turning towards it, and that helps us unblend from it, right? To recognize that me, the higher self that's noticing, can be with this rupture. I am not the rupture itself. I am with it. I'm acknowledging it. I'm turning towards it. And then I trust in rhythm, right? A rupture is okay, right? So whether it's a rupture with myself or with someone else, if I can move through these steps and slow down and know that a rupture is okay and reconnect with my higher self, then I actually can do a very conscious and efficient repair. And on the other side of this page is speaking more to, well, what about ruptures from our past that are stored in our body, that are kind of like these triggers? And that's where it gets obviously a little bit more complex. There's lots of different therapeutic techniques that can help with that. But one of the other ways that I like to approach this is to think about, well, practices that elevate carbon dioxide tolerance, like the positive stress exercises, some that we already talked about, mild air hunger, or Voloma technique, anything that's activating. If I'm consciously doing it and I always finish it with a repair in itself, coherent breathing, I'm actually creating a template in my body, in my nervous system, that's showing it how to rupture and repair. So it makes it a lot easier in moments when I feel the trigger, where maybe in the past, it's like, once I'm triggered, it's like, I'm gone. Like I am just in a reactive loop so quick. But by doing these practices that help elevate carbon dioxide tolerance, it makes it so that when I'm triggered, I can actually pause and notice it. And my body now has a map, right? I've done so many different practices where I'm with stress and I don't lose my mind. I can stay calm and connected in these positive stress techniques, so that in the moment when I really need it, when my stress just gets elevated because of a trigger, my body remembers, I can be with this. I can turn towards this, right? This is an opportunity to repair this stored rupture in my body so that it's no longer this triggering emotional charge, right? That's dictating how I can show up in the world. So other than the techniques we already practiced, a cold shower or an ice bath is a positive stress exercise.
I was laughing about that the other day because you talked about that at the retreat, and I thought, Christ.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it takes a while to get into the habit. I don't do it every day, but it really is about how you do it, right? Stepping into the cold, feeling it, and then relaxing the exhale. It's all about the exhale, right? Every inhale, my body even goes like, oh my God. And every exhale, oh, and I'm fine. It's all good. And after a few breaths like that, literally the water doesn't feel as cold, right? So my body's still activated, but I'm not skyrocketing into an activated state of a survival state. I'm calm and connected while feeling the stress. And it changes the way that I can be with stress in my life. As well as conscious connected breathing or pneuma breath work, another technique that I like to facilitate, where we consciously overbreathe, right? This technique of choosing to breathe harder and faster than we would ever breathe consciously in our normal day-to-day. But doing it in this way, after you've set an intention, and you're in a safe environment where as you feel things, you can be with them. It's like rupture after rupture comes to the surface and you get to repair it by continuing to breathe, right? Because so often we restrict our breathing when we feel overwhelmed or we can't be with something, right? So in those moments, if we actually keep breathing and we show our body, no, I can be with this and I can repair it, right? Mild air hunger or Buteyko techniques, which we've talked a little bit about at the beginning, the mild air hunger. Kapalabhati is just the breath of fire, right? So another activating technique. And physical exercise. Like this is, I was an athlete growing up, and so I had a very different experience or understanding of physical exercise. And after learning all about the nervous system and positive stress exercise, that's the way I view physical exercise now. Like it's actually, it's bouts of acute stress followed by regulation and restoration, right? That's it.
Athletes do that?
Not with this, not through this lens, right? I would say most athletes are doing it simply for performance, right? To be the best, to compete,
Yeah.
or aesthetic. I want to look a certain way. And I've gone through all those different phases of why I exercise. And I'm now just in this place of, no, I want to stress my body a little bit. And then I want to just calm it down and show it that it's fine. Yeah. Bring it back home. Mm-hmm. The last thing we're going to do together is we're going to move through the states of the nervous system. And I'm going to guide you in a visual experience so that you can really step into each state. And once we're in the state, I'm going to ask you from the perspective of the state you're in to finish these sentences. I am, and the world is. Right? And it's very specific in that, as like, for example, we move into sympathetic, right? You're not sympathetically activated right now, but we're going to create the visual experience of what it's like when you're in that state. And when you feel yourself in that state, we perceive the world, we perceive ourselves through the lens of that state, right? So it's not how you maybe are actually feeling right now, but that's the point. We want to be able to see how drastically different we feel, breathe, think, and act when we're in these different states.
Okay.
Okay. And really one of the purposes of this is so that it gives you more and more access points, so that throughout the day, if you start to notice like, oh, I just had a thought about how separate I am from everyone, right away you'll be able to go, oh, that's sympathetic, right? That's my survival state of sympathetic. Okay. That's the story of this state. That's not truth. It's just how I'm feeling in this moment. And if I can notice it and then use my breath to regulate, I'll find, oh, different thoughts, different beliefs, oh, new choices are popping up, right? So that we don't actually take our thoughts as truth or get stuck in trying to think our way out of our thinking, but to really recognize that story follows state. So if you are stuck in a story that is not serving you, then we need to let go of the story, move into the body, shift your state, and then you'll find you have access to a new story.
I just have to grab a pillow for a sec.
Yes, please. Do whatever you need to do to find some comfort. So taking your time to set your space up, settling into a position that feels comfortable and supportive.
Okay.
All right. So I'll invite you to close your eyes if that feels okay. You can keep them open. You can open them at any point. But we want to really support the ability to create a visual experience here. So we want to start our journey with ventral vagal energy. So we do that by taking our time. So offering ourselves compassion and patience as each breath slowly guides you into a more calm and connected state. Feeling that 3D expansion all the way down into the bowl of your pelvis. As your inhale brings in energy, and your exhale softens, relaxes. And this energy of ventral vagal is where we access compassion, and courage, and curiosity. You feel that in your breath. Your breath is soft and slow and deep and flexible. And there's a pretty consistent rhythm, yet each breath is also its own unique fingerprint. As you are listening and responding to each moment. This is the state of your higher self. Just notice where you access this energy in your body, perhaps your heart, or the movement of your diaphragm, or a warm glow in your belly, or maybe tingles behind your eyes. So as you connect with this ventral vagal energy, we want to anchor here. So as we move through the other states, it's as if we can keep one foot or one toe in ventral at all times. It's just noticing what that feels like, this anchoring, feeling it in your breath, this inner stability, this compassion, sense of being connected, calm and centered. And then we'll begin the journey through the evolution of the nervous system. So keeping one foot or one toe in ventral, we'll begin to illuminate the dorsal vagal survival state. So this part of the nervous system came into being 500 million years ago. You might notice behind your eyes as you invite in dorsal energy that things become gray. You're welcome to move into any position that feels comfortable. As this dorsal energy, we invite in this sense of being lost and alone, drifting. This place of collapse or disappearance. It might feel like energy is draining from your body, like you're untethered. And our breath in this state tends to be really shallow. Like I can't bring in the life force that I need. Like my lungs have collapsed. It's really slow, shallow breathing. And sometimes maybe even noticing that you stop breathing. So disappeared, I'm not here. Some other symptoms in this state are a foggy brain, feeling numb. It's like we're immobilized with fear. There are more danger signals than safety signals here. So perceiving from this place just a little bit longer, while knowing that your ventral vagal energy is right there with you. Just feel into these sentences, right? When you're in this dorsal place of survival, immobilized with fear. Just feel into how you would complete these sentences. I am, and the world is. And if you feel comfortable with saying them out loud, we can capture them while you're feeling them. I am, the world is.
Frightened?
Frightened, yeah. And the world is.
Harsh.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So slowly making our journey up the ladder of polyvagal theory. We'll now step into the sympathetic survival state. So right away, you might notice that your breath becomes a little bit more full. And it might start speeding up a little bit. You step into the sympathetic state where things start to get really loud, busy, like there's too much, perhaps a sense of overwhelm. This is the land of anxiety, panic, or hypervigilance, where our vision narrows in as we're seeking out danger everywhere. A sense of being alarmed or agitated or aggressive. Like I need to defend myself around every corner. So I might move into a fighting position, or I might want to run away. It's just noticing the terrain here. Maybe it's stormy, and rough water, or tornado, or hurricane. Just allowing yourself to feel this energy a little bit longer, knowing that you've got 1 foot in ventral. You're just visiting this terrain. So as you feel into this energy, how would you complete those sentences? I am, the world is.
I am frantic.
Thank you.
The world is out of control.
Yeah, thank you. All right. And now we bring ourselves back home to ventral. So taking a moment here, perhaps even a sigh of relief as we bring both feet back into ventral. And yeah, illuminating a visual where maybe the sun starts to peek through the clouds. What was stormy and loud and tornado-ish starts to dissipate as this new scene of calm water and sunshine, perhaps the sound of birds chirping, and the gentle breeze moving through your hair and across your skin. And noticing what really feels safe and comfortable and soothing here. Are there lots of trees or mountains? A river or a large body of water? Or perhaps even a very specific scene of a place you have visited before or have imagined, where you feel safe, comfortable, and welcomed. Just feel your whole system settle as you connect into this scene. Your breath starts to move more fluidly and flexibly. And where you get access to the ordinary and wonderful aspects of both sympathetic and dorsal in collaboration, in harmony with ventral. You get access to places like playfulness, creativity, a sense of adventure, where we can be mobilized in collaboration with others, where we dance or move into connection. And yet we also have this ability to be still, to enjoy deep intimacy with ourselves, with others, with the world, where we can slow down and listen and enjoy rest. to really trust in rhythm. It's feeling all of those aspects moving in your breath. And then complete these sentences. I am, and the world is.
I am flexible,
Mm.
and the world is exciting.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So just allowing another few moments here to just savor this ventral vagal energy. Both feet fully in this scene. Each breath nourishing your whole mind and body. So connected. So open. So flexible. Now, before we come out of this experience, we'll add one more piece to this, and that is giving these states a name that really resonates with you, perhaps based on what the visual scene is as you move through each state or what it reminds you of. So taking a moment to come back to dorsal, just as a brief visit, right? Noticing how your energy starts to be pulled out of your body. There's a sense of disappearing, collapsing. Perhaps there's a very noticeable way that you breathe, or feel, or how the weather appears in this state, the colors you see, or a character it reminds you of. What name would you give this dorsal survival state?
Hmm.
I can give you some ideas. I've had clients call this the swamp, or foggy, or uh, sad Mike Tyson. That's another one. Hmm.
I think I want to call it the crying place.
The crying place. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm slowly moving back up the ladder to visit this sympathetic survival state in a much different scene. Right? This place where you express, I am frantic and the world is out of control. Just noticing what that looks like, what it feels like. What would you name this state?
The fleeing place.
Beautiful. Thank you. Fleeing place. All right. And now, once again, rising back up into ventral vagal, climbing that ladder, climbing that rope, flying up, just noticing how you travel through these states as you now land 2 feet in ventral vagal. This scene where there's life and motion, rhythm, flexibility, nature. Your breath is flowing, calm and connected. place where you said, I am flexible and the world is exciting, what name would you give this place?
The joyful place.
The joyful place. Beautiful. All right. So just to illuminate this one more time, right? When you're in dorsal, that dorsal survival, the sad, the crying place, when you are there, the way you perceive the world is that it is harsh and I am frightened. And then when you travel up to the sympathetic survival state, this fleeing place, I am frantic and the world is out of control.
Yeah.
And then we rise back up. We come back home to ventral vagal, this joyful place where I am flexible and the world is exciting. Just really feel into the drastically different stories and sensations, right?
Yeah.
So what we want is to practice coming into ventral, this joyful place, more and more. This is where we want to have conversations from. This is where we want to choose what's next. Right? This is where we want to honor connection and foster relationships. More and more, savoring this place. Let's just allow another few breaths to just savor ventral vagal, this joyful place. With this deep knowing that no one stays in ventral all the time. No one. Right? We want to notice the ruptures, honor them, practice the repair, so that our body knows, even in moments and times of struggle, I know my way home. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes and take a moment to look around your space.
Yeah.
And that's the key, is we want to find these predictable anchors so that in moments when we're feeling like, oh, I've been pulled into my sympathetic or into my dorsal, first of all, it's okay, right? That was the biggest lesson for me. It's like, oh, nothing's wrong with me. This is normal.
Yeah. Well, that's the big one, right?
Yeah, huge. And then to bring in some ventral vagal energy. So even while you're experiencing something that's a little uncomfortable, if you then have this little visual of like, oh, the beach, right? And you take a moment to just bring in some of that energy, then you can turn towards what you're struggling with.
Yeah.
Right? Or it might just shift you right away back into this place of the hybrid state. So even if I'm in a sympathetic activated state, and then I recognize it, and I think of that scene on the beach.
Yeah.
Now I'm back into this place of like, great, I've got mobilization energy in my system and I can work with it, versus that do something, but nothing is actually going to satisfy me, right? Because I'm in this fear reaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the more we practice kind of visualizing what that safety scene looks like, then it could be little things of like the way the sun hits the water and bounces onto your face. You think of that, and in an instant, there I am. I've got the ventral vagal energy I need so that I can be calm and connected with whatever else is going on in my life. I have some follow-up ideas of different reflection questions to support in the integration process. But what my idea is that I would love for you to draw out a timeline of your day and your week.
Okay.
And over the next week, to just be in this place of curiosity. What do I notice? Right? How does my energy kind of naturally move throughout the day? Where do I notice that maybe I disconnect? where I get a little bit too activated, or maybe there's a period of the day where you're like, oh, I'm just always so calm and connected and have great energy here, right? Just to kind of play with, what do you notice, right? And then to use the information about the rhythms to just kind of as a mental model on top of what you notice, to see how that informs you, what information that gives you about how you already naturally move throughout your day, what's already working, what interventions do you already use,